How did you become a social activist?
Actually, I'm from a spiritual family. Being a Buddhist, we believe in karma, life after death. Tibetan culture is a Buddhist culture. Our motivation is very important. Like whatever you do, motivation should be correct. With motivation, you have to work hard. Then only you achieve. Now many Tibetans are getting Indian citizenship as per the law of the country. So this is a misunderstood. They think Buddhism is from Tibet. It's a Tibetan culture, but basically it is from India. Actually, not only Buddhism and Hinduism, all the major religions have very similar thing. We all believe in compassion, kind-hearted, to helping nature. Whatever religion tradition gives you answers or gives you peace and happiness, you follow that. We all are human beings. Nobody wants suffering. Everybody wants happiness. Tibetans inside, they are going through a very difficult life because they do not have a right to speech, right to religion. Tibet occupied by China. Not allowed to keep the pictures of His Holiness Dalai Lama. You cannot even take his name also. You will be caught
In China.
Yeah.
तो क्या हाल है दोस्तों, मेंटालिटी के एक और फ्रेश एपिसोड में आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैं हूं आपका होस्ट यश ठाकुर और आज हम आपके लिए बहुत ही स्पेशल एपिसोड लाए हैं। और हमारी जो ये शख्सियत है बहुत ही इंस्पायरिंग है। इनका नाम है सेरिंग लुडिंग। ये एक बुद्धिस्ट प्रैक्टिशनर है, टिबेटन है। शी इज़ द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द डून बुद्धिस्ट कम्युनिटी और एक फिलैंथ्रोपिस्ट है, सोशल वर्कर है। सो आज हम बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात करेंगे अबाउट बुद्धिज्म, अबाउट द टिबेटन कल्चर। सो आई होप यू स्टिक टू द एंड ऑफ द एपिसोड। हाउ डिड यू बिकम अ सोशल एक्टिविस्ट एंड a philanthropist? How did this journey start?
Okay, first I'll say Tashi Delek. It's a greeting in Tibetan, which means may you be well, and Namo Buddhaya, which is Buddhist greeting, homage to Lord Buddha. Actually, I'm from a spiritual family. Both my parents from a spiritual family, and one I feel because of some karmic imprints, I have had this inclination towards helping nature. And of course, Buddha Dhamma, these are the reasons I feel. And one more thing I want to share. Many years ago when I was born, my family they were non-veg, and I'm vegetarian by birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't eat egg also. But I used to eat egg, but it's been more than 25 years. I stopped eating egg. Meat, I was not eating since birth. So I feel being a Buddhist, we believe in karma, life after death. So I was rejecting this meat because even though I was born in a non-veg family. So yeah, these are the reasons I feel, yeah.
So how has your Tibetan heritage shaped you and in making your point across and all of that? How big of an impact has the Tibetan culture made in your life?
Tibetan culture is basically it's a Buddhist culture. Yeah. Buddhism went from India to Tibet. So all our behaviors, whatever our thinking, everything is based on Buddhism. Buddhism is a non-violence. It teaches on compassion. It teaches on non-violence. So these things helped.
What is the sole purpose and what exactly are you doing for the underprivileged? And
I am with two NGOs. One is Doon Buddhist Committee, and I'm one of the founding members of the Buddhist Committee, and also vice president. And our president is Khenchen Rangdo Rinpoche. He is also a dynamic leader. And then I'm with Tara Foundation. It's also a social NGO. And I'm chairperson of Tara Foundation also. So through Doon Buddhist Committee, our main objectives are revival of ancient Indian wisdom. And we work for animals' welfare also, environment and social care. And similar Tara Foundation. But in Tara Foundation, we do not have this revival of ancient Indian wisdom. Rest are same. So we have helped many. Our basic focus is on education in Tara Foundation. So we have a tuition center also for the underprivileged in the slums. And we help students who want to study further because of the financial conditions. They are not able to study. So we've helped many of them also. And we help we help also many animal NGOs also.
Is it only locally that you are doing plantation or you do plantation every?
Plantation, it's locally, and some of our members in Rajasthan also, they also do plantation here.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the two places. And for environment, we have a recycle, not recycle, you can say upcycle, like the monks' robes, like which are not in use anymore.
Right.
So earlier we used to make bags, like school bags or bags, shopping bags, like we distribute them freely, which we have distributed across India, like
Yeah.
states of India.
You said you are a Tibetan and you follow Buddhism and all that. Buddhism as a practice, how has that impacted your life and your work culture and all of that? Uska kitna impact hua hai?
Buddhism and Tibetan culture, as I said earlier, like same, like Tibetan culture is a Buddhist culture only. And I just share a little more. My parents came from Tibet when they were very young, like teenagers.
Okay.
And I'm a second generation. I'm born and brought up in India, and I'm legally Indian. Like, So our leader, his soul is Dalai Lama. He also says he's more Indian than Tibetan because our behavior, character, whatever, it is all based on Buddhism. Like we practice Buddhism, and our body also have grown up is made up of by eating Indian food only. Like, and Tibetan and like in Tibet we say Payul. Payul means fatherland. Like India we say motherland. Like so it's like our fatherland is Tibet and motherland is India. Like
in all your philanthropic efforts, can you share a philanthropist story that you've done recently, worked on that has really touched you?
Actually, there have been many, like, it's not one. I think some years back, I regularly go for walks, like in the evening, Rajpur, Old Masuri Road.
Right.
So I saw one cow in a very bad shape, like injured, like, and so there are a lot of passerbys who are crossing, but everybody's ignoring, kind of say, you can say. So I wouldn't like see like this cow in this condition. So I stopped by to help the cow. Then of course I called some friends. They came with the first aid, then with food. Then with the first aid person also said that cow is quite serious. It needs to go to the hospital. So then anyway, many people joined, like everybody. So reason why I'm saying this, like in the initially stage, if nobody's there, you should come forward. Then people join you. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is what I always try to do in my work. And our motivation is very important. Like whatever you do, motivation should be correct. And of course, not only with motivation, you have to work hard. Then only you achieve.
So in your experience, I was doing research on you, and you had shared some things about yourself, and you do a lot of work for the underprivileged children also.
Yes.
So what is the process like? How do you reach out to them?
So I'm into this from quite long, like, from this social work. So a lot of people know us, like, So NGOs also approach us, individuals also approach us. But then we don't help them blindly. Of course, we go and check and verify whether the person is genuine or not. Then only we go ahead.
So you do a proper cross check.
Yes, I do, so that a right person gets the help.
Now I want to talk about. So I've also grown up here. I've had friends from the Tibetan community also growing up and all of that. But I have always been very intrigued to know more about the Tibetan culture.
Okay.
So what are some of those unique aspects of the Tibetan culture that you would want people to know more, that people don't know generally?
We give very importance to the compassion. Like even in the West, they prefer Tibetan nurses because of their compassion nature. And Tibetans are very dedicated, hardworking. And it's a very liberal community, like men and women, like they equally work. Like it's not that woman is just sitting at home and only the husband is the earning member. Like it's not like that. Sometimes it's the opposite case. Like there are many men like who are house husband, women are working, like So, and of course, our leader, his soul is Dalai Lama. He's a visionary, and we all follow him. So these are the things.
has the Tibetan culture managed to survive, and how has it evolved, especially after the exile of His Holiness the Dalai Lama? How has it thrived over the years after the exile?
Okay, after, as we all know, 1959, when Chinese took Tibet completely, in March, His Holiness came to India through Tawang, Arunachal. So around 80,000 Tibetans followed him. And then all the Tibetans are very grateful to the Indian government for the resettlement of Tibetans, getting the Tibetan settlements and education. And of course, our leader, visionary leader, His Holiness Dalai Lama. And it was very good of him to have settlements, like, because of that, Tibetan culture is intact, like, na?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can tell me something about the language also. So when you said your parents came to India as a teenager and all of that. How easy or how difficult was it to integrate into the Indian society for?
They went through a lot of hardships, like our first generation. Actually, language is different, climate condition, food habits, everything is different, like, na? So then many of the Tibetans, most of the Tibetans had worked as road makers. Most of the Himalayan belt roads, they were made by the Tibetans, like, na? Those times in 60s and 70s. And since they're very hardworking, then they went to, must be knowing the sweater business, like, and of course they're hardworking. Every family member works, like, and His Holiness has given importance to the education. So I think more than 90% Tibetans are literate. And I think it's because of the Buddha Dhamma. I've never heard or seen that in spite of losing one's country, leaving behind everything, many families were separated. I never heard like they were going through a depression or people are attempting suicide, like, na? So I think it's because of the Buddha Dhamma, which is very strong within us, like.
Right. So it basically gives you strength to tackle all the challenges or the problems.
Strong believer of karma, and
right.
Of course, impermanence, nothing will stay permanent. Like,
right now, offline also, we were discussing about certain things. And so if you can just throw some light upon the Tibetan people and how many Tibetan people are there across, like, pan-India. How many, what is that connecting factor between all the Tibetans in India?
As I said earlier, about 80,000 Tibetans came. Then I think in the 90s when... Then Xiaoping, that I think then president after the Mao. During that many Tibetans came, like, na. So 90s was the peak time. I think they were about 150,000 Tibetans. Then after that, Chinese again rules changed and they became borders became very strict. So no Tibetans allowed to come to India. So then, of course, because of the literacy, population is not growing, it's very less population. And then nowadays many are going to the West, like, na? Yeah, many, like, I think in the 90s when New America, like, they took 1,000 Tibetans, like, na? For rehabilitation. So with them, I think after that, so many Tibetans went to abroad, like, not only America, West, like Canada, France, Switzerland, Germany, all those places, like, no. So that is the one reason there are very less Tibetans nowadays in India. Recently, I think it was
because of migration.
Yeah, migrations and less population. And just a couple of months back only, I saw in a news, Tibetan news, there are only 75 Tibetans in India. Yeah, all of India.
How many?
75,000, yeah.
75,000,
yeah. Only. And there are many monasteries. Nowadays, in the most of the monasteries, majority of the monks, they're from the Himalayan belt, and some foreign students like Nepal, Bhutan, and Mongolia. But about 75% of them are non-Tibetans, like, na? Yeah. But it's very difficult to make out because we all share same culture, like.
Right.
Yeah. And one reason why they're going to abroad because if you go abroad, so within most of the countries it's quite same, but it may vary from 1 to 2 years. Say in Canada, within 5 years you become citizen of the country and you get all the benefits of the citizen. Whereas in India, nowadays it's been much better. Earlier, like Tibetans, in spite of being a legally Indian, they are not allowed to avail. They face many challenges to avail Indian citizen because the Constitution of India says from 1950s, 26 January to 1980, 1st July, whoever is born in India, by birth you become Indian. In spite of that, many Tibetans were facing challenges. Because of this, if they stay as a refugee status, then it's a very difficult life. Even if you go to college, you have to pay higher fees because you are considered foreigner, and you cannot get the license for the business. You cannot own a house. That also you have to go through a reserve bank. So I think so. These are the main reasons they go abroad, like for a better future. And some Tibetans, they might have a very good potential due to this limited rules. They are not able to do anything. But it's been few years, things are much better. Now many Tibetans are getting Indian citizenship as per the law of the country without any difficulties. Yeah.
So there has been some kind of improvement.
Yeah. It's been few years, yeah. Now it's much better, yeah. And I also feel like Tibetan community, India, it's very, to stay in India is very important. Also for the Tibetans, also for the India.
So what according to you has been one of the most misunderstood facts about or misunderstood things about Buddhism or the Tibetan culture that people might have?
Tibetan culture, actually, one more I'll share you. Because I have this, we have this Christian center, like Tara Christian Council. We celebrate all the festivals, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, Buddha. So regarding Buddha Purnima, so we kept a Buddha's picture and asked them like, ये कौन है करके ये सब ये तिप्ती का भगवान है like So this is a misunderstood. They think it's a Buddhism is from Tibet. It's a Tibetan culture, but basically it is from India. Yeah, I feel this is a misunderstanding.
When we talk about the Buddhism or the Tibetan culture, and how do they view suffering, and what tools do they offer to cope up with the suffering and all of that? What is that one thing within the Tibetan or the Buddhist culture that helps you to cope with the sufferings?
And one thing I said, we believe in impermanence, like this will not stay forever, like suffering. And second thing is we believe in karma. It is because of our negative karma we are suffering. So that negative karma is exhausting, like so which is a good thing, like and then say if I see anybody in pain, I see it like a pain to myself, like so that way it helps, like
like even in Hinduism also we meditate, and it's similar to what Buddhist sorts of practice and all of that. What role of meditation or mindfulness does it play in during work or during whatever things you're doing? So what is the significance of meditation in your life or the Tibetan culture?
Meditation, there's two kinds of meditation, like one is single pointed meditation, one is analytical meditation. We call it shamatha and vipassana. Single pointed meditation is basically a focused meditation, and where for the beginners, like especially we all are beginners, conditions are such that, of course, how we have to sit the position, environment should be calm. But and in Tibetan, like meditation means khom. We say to the meditation khom. Khom means to make it habit. So we have to make it a habit, like So after meditation, when you reach at a certain level, so even in the say situation where the situation is tense, situation is not calm and peaceful, due to meditation practice, we should be in that same state, like, very calm, peaceful. If you are calm and peaceful, there's a clarity, like, you can see the picture clear,
right,
na?
right.
Yeah. So, like, say water, if the water is dirty, you are not able to see anything, like, once it settles down, then you're able to see the things better. So in the work also, we can see the things, we can understand the person's pain or problems better. We're able to focus, like, so these are the things.
Which is very similar to Buddhism also.
Yeah, very similar.
Like Hinduism.
Yeah,
also.
very similar.
The teachings of Buddha and all of that, what are the major similarities between, according to you, between Buddhism and Hinduism? Offline we were talking about similar gods, and you mentioned about certain gods that you have female, like a female Buddha.
Yeah.
So if you can just throw some light on that.
So first I'll say I'm not a Buddhist master or scholar, but I'm just a Buddha Dharma student. So whatever basic knowledge I have, I'll share. Yeah. Actually, not only Buddhism and Hinduism, all the major religion have very similar thing. We all believe in compassion, kind-hearted, like, to helping nature. That is same with all the major religion traditions. Like, we believe in karma, we believe in life after death, meditation, yoga. All these are similar. Like, these are the similarities. And offline, as I said, like our leader, His Holiness, he also says it's very. He never promotes Buddhism. He promotes humanity. Like, he never says Buddhism is best. So it's like religions are like medicines. Like we practice medicines to give us happiness, to give us peace. Like, so doctor has many patients. Like, he'll not give one medicine to all the patients. Like, similar way, whatever religion tradition gives you answers or gives you peace and happiness, you follow that. Yeah. So,
So any such things, any such teachings that you use in your personal life?
We all are human beings. Nobody wants suffering. Everybody wants happiness. And this is how I try to help and how I connect with people. Like,
why so many young people are leaning towards spirituality and all of that. So what is the take on the younger Tibetan generation? Are they taking to spirituality? Are they connected to their roots, or they are also in a hustle and finding things to work and do? And this is a very fast paced world and all that. So it is very important for for somebody to latch on to the roots per se. So are the younger generation Tibetans rooted with their culture?
Yes. I think it's even much better because they're trying to balance, like, earlier, like, say in my parents' time, they'll follow whatever guru says. Like, nowadays people are reading books, they are asking questions, they are reasoning, like, they're trying to understand, like, so I feel they're doing very well and trying to balance with modern life.
What challenges do Tibetan communities face globally, and how can one help the Tibetan community?
Tibetans outside India, I don't think so they face any special challenges. It's same what we all are facing. We all live in a free country, like, it's same. But Tibetans inside, they're going through a very difficult life because they do not have a right to speech, right to religion.
Where?
In China, Tibet occupied.
By
China, yeah. They cannot, right to religion is not there, right to speech is not there. And even not allowed to keep the pictures of His Holiness Dalai Lama. You cannot even take his name also. You will be caught, like,
in China.
Yeah. In China, Tibet, China, yeah.
Right.
So very difficult life they are going through.
Right.
So I feel not only the individuals globally in the big nations, they can definitely help Tibet to come out of this. Yeah.
Right. So according to you, how many Tibetans do you think are there in Tibet?
Tibet, yeah, 6 million.
6 million Tibetans.
Yeah.
But we hear a lot of news about the Han Chinese relocating from different parts of China to Tibet to integrate with them and change the Tibetan culture.
Yeah, true.
So is this true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and Tibetans have become minority in their own country, like.
Right.
And one child policy, China's, like, even the small children, Tibetan children, they are sent to Chinese school to brainwash, like, forcefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very difficult time they are going through. Yeah.
Right. So what do you think, according to the current situation, that will the UN be able to help in the Tibetan cause, or what do you think, that at some point in time Tibet will be free, or what? So what is that long-term goal that Tibetans think that will happen with Tibet?
Yeah. We all believe Tibet will be free one day. And because nothing is permanent, like yeah, and Chinese foundation is very weak foundation. Like you know, on the social media, they show what they want to show, not the real picture. Like, and recently I heard, in China, Buddhism is growing at very fast level. Like,
Okay.
so I feel that is very positive sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that India will have a role in that, in helping Tibet with the free country?
Yes.
So because it's not easy to free a country, you have to go to war. A lot of diplomatic effort goes in.
I suppose it will be solved through dialogue.
Through dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want war. Yeah. This is our leader has always trying to solve the problems through dialogue, and he always preaches like every problem can be solved through dialogue. Yeah.
What are the 4-5 things, or probably 10 things, whatever? Do you think that the Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has to tell the people of the world, or what are his 3, 4, 5, 10 things?
So I'll share his 4 commitments, like which he's focusing, and he's trying to working very hard on it. First is, of course, preserving Tibetan culture and environment. Then religious harmony, which is very important. Like, and then his universal ethics and humanity. He's trying to spread humanity. And revival of ancient Indian wisdom. These are the 4 things he's focusing on. Yeah. And his message to the world everywhere. I recently saw, and presently he is in Ladakh, Zanskar, like, and in Leh he was giving teaching to a group of Muslim community.
In Ladakh?
Yeah, Ladakhi Muslim.
Ladakhi,
yeah. He was saying oneness, like, oneness is very important. We all are human beings. Earth is our only home, like, all the problems happen because of you and me. If we are one, everybody will be happy. Everybody will be happy and nice, like,
Right.
So that is major message. Yeah.
How do you address or reconcile activism with Buddhist principles of non-attachment and inner peace? So how do you connect the two?
Attachment is very difficult, like, no, yeah. Especially with your family, loved one. So it's very difficult. Of course, we believe once we are able to give up the attachment, then things are much better. There's more peace and more happiness. But it's very difficult, like, but still we are working on it. Yeah.
What do you think the global community can learn from the Tibetan Buddhism during the time of such uncertainty and where so many wars are happening? What can the world learn from the Tibetan culture?
Tibetan culture is the compassion is very strongly said. Compassion with wisdom, not only compassion with wisdom. And since China occupied Tibet, you have never heard like Tibet is going for becoming violent, like, very peaceful community. Tibetans is a very peaceful community. They're very dedicated, hardworking, like, even towards their enemy, they develop compassion. So there's a recent story, it's true. And somebody from Tibet had visited His Holiness. He was imprisoned by China, I think it's a monk. He was in Chinese prison for many years and he was tortured. He went through very difficult times. Then His Holiness asked, like, did you face any challenge? What was your fear? Like, he said, I had only one fear, like, So then His Holiness said, what? Like, he said, I have a whole only fear of losing my compassion or patience, like, so these are things like world should learn, I feel. And main is compassion with wisdom, dedicated. We try to solve our problems through dialogue, not through violence. Yeah.
Before we move, one last question. If you could share one piece of Tibetan wisdom with the world, what would it be?
Tibetan wisdom, I think so main is compassion. I'll just share with our basic mantra. Even a small child will know. It's Om Mani Padme Hum, like, na? Om has a 3 syllables. Om, Ahama. Aha means body, mind, speech. Lord, Padma means lotus, like, what lotus represents wisdom. And money is a jewel, like, na? So, through wisdom and compassion, we try to purify ourselves. That basic human nature is very pure, like, na? We are all diluted, like, na? So that is Om Mani Padme Hum. So we practice compassion with wisdom. Yeah.
Perfect. We can go on and on with having a discussion. This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule and having a conversation. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to The Mentality. Thanks.